Goeiedag, good day, fellow South Africans and citizens of the world. Well, just on the 2019 channel earlier this evening or last night, I put up a video about how Telkom are retrenching 3,000 or about 20% of their staff. Now, Eskom in comparison has 47,000 employees, which is actually about 50% more than they need. They should be around about 30,000 employees. But those employees are basically protected by COSATU. And this is why Eskom is in such a dire situation or dire strait. Now, Eskom, to try and cover some of its salary costs, is wanting to increase tariffs again. And of course, this is going through the court system because NERSA, who actually regulate electricity in South Africa, have said enough's enough when it comes to the way Eskom is operating. If Eskom's urgent application in the Gauteng High Court, which began on the 15th of January 2020, succeeds, it could see your electricity prices increase by 53% over the next 3 years, according to calculations by the National Electricity Regulator of South Africa, or NERSA. Eskom sought an order from the court permitting it to impose a tariff increase of 16.6% from April 2020 and 16.72% from April 2021. The difference between the two is because NERSA calculates a total over 3 years, its multi-year price determination. The monopoly power provider wants more. In addition, Eskom will bring 2 further applications in February 2020 against the lower electricity tariff increases granted by NERSA, and it has also applied for consumers to stump up 27 billion rand in additional costs. Hearings for these clawback costs start on January the 20th. Whichever calculation you use, consumers will be sitting with bills that could escalate by more than 20% a year over the medium to long term. Municipalities add a surcharge on tariffs, as do agencies which sell prepaid electricity. Everybody's on the take. On Wednesday, the 15th of January, Eskom asked the court for urgent interim relief to stave off financial disaster because of Eskom's liquidity problem and the risk of catastrophic harm to Eskom and the national economy arising from the NERSA decision. When the government gave Eskom a 23 billion rand a year bailout for the next 3 years, NERSA's deducted this amount from Eskom's allowable revenue to lower the tariff paid by consumers. It granted Eskom a 9.41% electricity tariff increase in 2020, 8.1% in 2021, and 5.22% the following year, decisions that are now being appealed against in court by Eskom. Eskom CFO Caleb Kasim, in an affidavit before the court, said, NERSA's decision to fix the Eskom tariff on the basis of its misappropriation of the annual 23 billion rand equity injection is manifestly unlawful and irregular. He added, this decision violates basic principles of accounting by effectively treating an equity injection as revenue. It also manifests an approach that is calculated to kill investment in the electricity sector. No right-thinking owner, be it government or a private owner, will ever invest in an existing electricity licensee. If the result of investing is that NERSA will simply misappropriate the investment amount by commensurately reducing the tariffs that a licensee can charge. But what Eskom does not say is that the taxpayer-funded bailout and the tariff increase amounts to a double tax, which NERSA has stopped by attributing the bailout differently in its calculation of how much consumers can reasonably be charged. In its application, Eskom puts the onus for its powerless financial position solely at the door of low electricity tariffs, and it uses a dated World Bank report to buttress its position. The utility in its affidavit before the court dismisses state capture, corruption, mismanagement and cost overruns as financial factors at all. Of course they would. Kasim argues that Eskom does not dispute that there has been historical mismanagement within its senior ranks, and that issues relating to state capture have bedeviled its ability to deliver electricity efficiently to the South African public. But the fundamental liquidity problems faced by Eskom are primarily a product, not of these issues, but rather of inadequate tariff increases. Even the wildest estimates of what state capture activities might have cost Eskom in recent times do not reach anywhere near 69 billion rand. But various reports into procurement, coal supply and the cost overruns on Medupi and Kusile and Ingula power stations show that corruption is a key factor behind Eskom's debt spiral. The papers before court lay bare Eskom's costs and debts. It has a funding requirement of more than 99 billion rand in 2020, and also 85 billion rand in capital and interest repayments. It then enters a 3-year cycle in which its debt repayments will be between 85 billion and 90 billion rand a year. It is in what NERSA calls a utility debt spiral, and consumers are seen as the way out. Exactly. Entrenched and powerful labour and patronage interests will not allow Eskom's management either to reduce costs — it has a bloated staff complement of 38,000 people — or moderate wages, and powerful coal and nuclear interests are lobbying against independent power production, which will reduce demand from Eskom. On top of this, Eskom staff received increases of 7.5% in the most recent wage round, and 30,000 workers in the bargaining unit were given a once-off payment of 10,000 rand each. Now, remember, this is a state-owned enterprise that is on its knees financially, paying out these huge amounts of money to its staff. Surveys show almost no private sector workers won increases like this in a near-recessionary economy. In this context, consumers are the sitting ducks, and this week's application by Eskom reveals the utility knows this, as it seeks to put in place emergency tariff hikes through the courts, and also through applications to NERSA for clawback payments through the regulatory clearing account. Eskom biographer James Stein noted on Twitter that electricity tariff increases have ballooned by 450% since 2007. 450% in 12 years. Extraordinary. NERSA's papers before the courts show that in 2008, Eskom was allowed a tariff increase of 27.5%, 31.3% in 2009, 24.8% in 2010, and 25.08% in 2011. Way above the inflation rate. NERSA is opposing Eskom's application and says it made its tariff decisions as a balance of fairness and equity between Eskom and the public. It rationally decided to exclude the 23 billion rand bailout from the calculation of the allowable revenue Eskom can raise from the public. Nomfundo Masita, the electricity and piped gas regulator at NERSA, in her affidavit says it became apparent that allowing Eskom the full WACC, or weighted average cost of capital, by the inclusion of the 23 billion rand would have resulted in a 53% increase in electricity prices. A 53% increase in electricity prices would evidently have been unaffordable to the economy. NERSA rationally considered the sustainability of Eskom and affordability by consumers and the impact on the economy in taking this decision. Masita further argues in her paper that the court cannot become a regulator and make tariff decisions. She says, "I respectfully submit that NERSA is better suited than the court to make a determination on Eskom's application for tariff increases." Masita made short shrift of Eskom's central argument that low tariffs are to blame for the crisis. In her papers, she pointed out to the court Eskom's inadequate financial risk management, operational and technical inefficiencies, and higher costs of borrowing NERSA had put on hold all approvals for further expenditure on Medupi, Kusile and Ngula power stations after cost overruns of 33 billion rand. The regulator intends to start its own investigation into Eskom for fraud, corruption and state capture, said Masita in her explosive affidavit before the court, in which she revealed that Eskom had budgeted for 1.8 billion rand in bonuses to be paid from 2019 to 2022. Eskom Chief Operating Officer Jan Oberholzer, who has admitted that Eskom is captured, said earlier in January that no bonuses had been paid out in 2019. To explain why NERSA granted the increases it did, Masita said its decision was made in the best interest of the overall South African economy and the public. She said Eskom's urgent application to court was an instance of self-created urgency. I contend this is a ploy by Eskom to exaggerate what it considers to be a devastating effect on its financial position. It is my contention that it amounts to an abuse of process. Unlike Eskom's view that corruption exerted small pressure on its balance sheet, Masita's affidavit goes into pages detailing how the cost of mismanagement and capture can impact on the cost of electricity. Eskom is the author of its own liquidity problem. Eskom makes a bold allegation pertaining to catastrophic harm to itself and to the national economy, but fails to address its mismanagement and governance inefficiencies. In short, Eskom is fucking-moneyed. Alright guys, please remember to subscribe to be kept informed. Ring the bell for the updates. Please like this video, please share this video, and above all, stay safe. Bye for now.